Hello everyone. Today's video is a viewer request. As part of the shadow work series, recently I uploaded a video on how to do shadow work with a tarot deck. And a few of you asked me if I could show, demonstrate, speak to using an oracle deck only to do shadow work. So the process will be similar to working with a tarot deck. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a few moments for you. There's just a few things that you want to be aware of as you approach shadow work. Now, of course, shadow work disclaimer 101. You know, I always have this at the beginning of any shadow work series video. I really want to encourage you not to engage in shadow work when you've just been triggered or if you're not in a space where you feel balanced. And I want to encourage you to take your time with the process. It's not something that you can rush through or force yourself to get done quickly or get over quickly. And the purpose and the goal of shadow work isn't to get over something or to fix something. The goal with shadow work is to integrate. It's to integrate, it's to offer love and compassion to these aspects of ourselves that fractured through traumatic events or through an experience that was visceral for us at any point in time during our life. So that being said, let's talk about using an oracle deck for the process of inquiry, which is something that I'm a huge proponent of when it comes to shadow work. There's a few things you want to be aware of when you're making your deck choice when it comes to an oracle deck. In this type of situation, I would encourage you to use a weightier, meatier deck than something like the Earthbound Oracle or something that's really light and surface focused. For instance, no offense to anyone who loves these decks, but like a Doreen Virtue deck or a Colette Baron Reid deck might not be the best choice for this type of work. At least I have not found that to be the case. I prefer a deck more like Les Vampire Oracle, Alice the Wonderland Oracle, the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild, the Kali Oracle, the Isis Oracle, Divine Circus Oracle is another great option, or the option that I'm going to demonstrate today, which is the Lantern Oracle, which was literally made for shadow work. You want a weightier deck like this because you want to be able to get to the root or to the heart of the matter that you're ready to get to at this point in time. So again, nothing is one and done here on the spiritual path. It's not like you're going to look at this pattern that you keep repeating or this trauma bond that you're trying to release and get it accomplished in one session. As with anything with shadow work, we come back to things when we're ready to work at a deeper level. So don't rush and push yourself through the process, and also don't think that you're going to do this and it's done. You never have to come back and revisit the specific wound that you have a focus on in the shadow work. So you want to have a deck that has some meat and some weight to it with a really nice guidebook insofar as something that you can sink your teeth into, because you're going to want to go to that guidebook as you're kind of summing up the experience. As you're preparing to leave the inquiry experience, it's nice to be able to have that guidebook to reference and to come back to. And so I do like an oracle deck with a nice guidebook for shadow work like this. You're going to want a journal and a pen, and exactly the same as in the shadow work deck, the shadow work with a tarot deck video, you're going to want to move past the point of resistance. So you're going to be asking questions and pulling cards, and you're going to feel fine with it. And okay, I got it. And then you're going to get to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm fine. I don't want to go here. You're going to like anger. For me, typically, like I start to get angry. And that's when you know that you're about to move into the space of resistance. And just underneath that is the sweet spot. Just underneath that is where you're going to reap the benefit of engaging in shadow work. Because just underneath that is the inner child, or that fractured aspect of ourselves that's felt that it had to fracture in order for us to survive the situation or maneuver through the family dynamic we had to, etc. And once we reach that, that's where we then integrate. That's where we then hold that aspect of us in love. That's where we then dialogue with that part of ourselves and start to offer that part of ourselves an equal voice at the table that is our life. okay? So when you feel that resistance, that's the sweet spot, and I want you to go just underneath that. I don't want you to traumatize yourself and go too far, but I also don't want you to let yourself off the hook before you hit the resistance, okay? Another thing, when you're working with your oracle deck, what I want to encourage you to pay attention to is when you ask the question and pull the card, as I'm about to demonstrate, notice if you're getting more out of the images or the key phrases on the card. Move in the direction of whichever one you're getting the most out of, okay? It might be that the keywords are prompting you more. It might be that the imagery is prompting you more. Don't try to force yourself to work intuitively in a specific way. Let that flow. Move in the direction where you're getting the most, whether it's the keywords or the imagery or a combination thereof, okay? So like I said, you're gonna want a journal and a pen, and you're gonna wanna have something in mind when you sit down to do this inquiry work with your oracle deck. So you wanna have either a pattern you keep repeating, a situation you keep repeating in your life, a relationship dynamic that keeps repeating, or something that you feel like you're acting out in regards to in your life, where you feel like the adult you doesn't show up to the situation. The traumatized aspect of yourself shows up for that situation. So it could be a work dynamic, it could be a relationship dynamic, it could be an unhealthy pattern in your life, whether that's, overeating or undereating, or an addiction that keeps showing up, or a way in which you tend to handle things that doesn't feel authentic to you, but it's something that you keep coming back to. And really, there's a lot of wisdom to be found in examining the patterns that we keep repeating for ourselves when it comes to shadow work. So it could be that you have a habitual way of responding to someone or something, and you know that that doesn't feel like something you want to continue to do, and you want to shift that. That's where shadow work comes in. Perhaps you have a really negative inner self-critic or a group of inner self-critics within yourself, and you want to start to shift that dynamic, the way in which you talk to yourself. Then you want to approach shadow work for that in regards to inquiry. So when it comes to inquiry, we're going to ask questions until we get down to the root cause, and then we offer integration exercise from there, okay? So you're going to want to have your journal, your pen, and you're going to want to have your cards. You want to ask specific questions around this pattern, situation, experience, emotion, addiction, whatever it may be. You're going to keep asking how, when, where, and why questions until you hit that resistance. And then you're going to go just that little bit further and you'll hit the sweet spot. And you'll know what I'm saying when you hit it. It's one of those things where like you have to do it in order to get the feel for it. And then the more you do it, the more you can really move into the energy of it. So previously we had used tarot, which has set meanings and set structure, in order to do this type of inquiry work. In this situation, I was asked to do this with just an oracle deck. So I'm going to show you how you can work with just the oracle deck when it comes to inquiry right now. So let's say that I keep, let's see, what would be a good one? And this is just an example that I'm using, but let's say that I keep choosing unhealthy partners in my romantic life. And I want to take a look at like, why do I keep doing that? And how can I shift this, right? So the question I would first approach my oracle deck with, and I'm going to shuffle while I'm doing this, and I really encourage you to dialogue this part and do it out loud. If you are struggling to do this on your own, find someone you trust to assist you in this, and you can also purchase sessions from various healers who will hold this space for you. If you really feel stuck around this, don't try to go it alone. Ask someone for help, but just make sure it's someone you can trust, because these tend to be emotional experiences and you want to feel safe to be able to release. So let's say I start this by asking, why do I keep choosing a similar type of partner for myself? Now here I've drawn card number 37, transitions. You have all the inner resources you need to cross whatever bridges arise on your path. Now, if I were to read this like it was a reading, that would make absolutely no fucking sense, right? So this is where I want to show you how you would interpret this when it comes to shadow work. The theme here is transitions, and I see an older woman here, and I also see galaxies, right? So when I'm asking why I keep choosing this same type of person, I can see in my experience that there's a certain individual in which I had a type of relationship with that was very unhealthy. And I know just looking at this image what that who that relationship was with, right? And I know in this case from looking at the imagery, not from the title. Okay, so I'm going to trust my gut about that. Okay, so I know where this pattern first was cemented in for me from this image. And you're going to trust whatever comes up here, even if it feels crazy or if it makes perfect sense. All right, so this is part of why. When did I first experience this type of toxic, abusive relationship dynamic in my life? Card number 25, emotional energy. Emotions are messengers to be met with appropriate attention, action, and gratitude. Again, in a situation, even though I'm using the Lantern Oracle, it's the images that are giving me insight. I would say I probably first experienced and saw this type of dynamic with my mother. This is a female energy represented in the card. So then I would ask, okay, what did my mother teach me about romantic partnership? Weeping wound, you are not your wound. Do you notice in this image how her heart has been cut open and damaged and she's bleeding from her eyes? So I can see that what my mother passed down to me in regards to romantic partnership from this imagery is that relationships hurt, relationships are going to wound you, and it's not safe to share your emotions. You have to protect yourself. So now I'm going to go a little bit further. See how I'm still feeling good about it? Like, okay, I got it. All right. Emotional wounds, self-protection. Love equals abuse, right? Love equals abuse. How have I taken this on in my life? Strength of vulnerability. True power lies at the root of perceived weakness. I tend to come across as very strong and tend to pull in partners who want to take me down a notch, right? So that's what this is showing me. I come across as a warrior here. And so I'm tending to pull in connections where I have to fight. Why do I have to fight? So see how I'm kind of pulling through? You can't like plan these out. You just have to kind of go with it. Okay, so why do I have to fight? I have to fight because sharing isn't safe. This is the sharing card. So see how now I'm not even paying attention to the titles, because really what's sticking out to me is this. I have to fight because I have to protect those who are weaker, because I can't be weak. I have to be strong. Where did I first experience needing to be strong? Where did I first experience needing to be strong? Radical self-acceptance. Okay, since very young in my life, I had to experience that. Okay, see? Did you see the pause I just did right there? That's the resistance. Okay, so I first experienced this dynamic in conjunction to how my mother was in her romantic partnerships. And I was very, very young when this first happened. So there's a resistance where I want to be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to walk away from this reading now. This is where you take it one step farther into the sweet spot. What was inside of that experience for me? Metamorphosis. It changed me. It caused an awakening, but it shut something else off. What did it shut off? There it is. Key to intimacy. My ability to be gentle and soft and experience intimacy in relationship with another person. So you'll know the sweet spot because you'll feel that you hit it. You'll get this like release in your heart right just after you felt that like fuck off feeling, right? I love shadow work. I can geek out on this stuff all day. It's just so powerful. It's so liberating. Okay, so I can see that this started very, very young for me, that the root is in the feminine for me in regards to abuse equals love. And then I keep pulling this experience in because that's what I believe. And I believe I have to be the strong one and I have to fight. And that I have to experience that type of dynamic with another person, that someone wants to take me out, right? Love equals hurt and puts me in a position where I have to protect other people, not myself, and where I cannot be vulnerable. I cannot experience true intimacy. So now we've used the Oracle deck to get down to the root for this session of the shadow work. Now we will ask the Oracle deck, how can I start to allow myself to be vulnerable, first and foremost, within myself? And then we have moving forward, the first step is taken within our stillness. Now, this is where I would pull out my guidebook, read the card meaning, sit with what comes up for how I can start to allow myself to experience and express intimacy in healthy situations. Additionally, I might ask what I need to do to offer that little infant version of myself love and support so that I can begin to integrate this being that felt so unsafe at a very, very young age. And from this is presence of absence. So I'm asking, how can I hold space for this little version of me? How can I bring them into my bosom and offer them love and compassion and understanding so that they can start to feel safe in being vulnerable? You notice here that there's the absence that's discussed here. And so as I look at this image, what comes up for me is not knowing who I would be without this definition of experience, right? That it's not safe for me to be intimate and vulnerable. And so if this were an actual shadow work experience, I would journal about why that feels unsafe, what's inside of that for me, and how I can offer this infant aspect of myself love through dialoguing with that part of myself in journey work. And there are other videos on this channel and many other videos on inner child work that if you resonate with this exercise, I would encourage you to explore. And naturally for myself as part of the work, that would be the next step of the shadow work. But this is how you can use an oracle deck alone to do this same level of inquiry. And you really need to trust in the experience. Am I more drawn to the keywords or am I more drawn to the artwork? Because you're not going to be referencing the guidebook until you get into the sweet spot of the shadow work. You can distract yourself all day into an intellectual place with reading that guidebook. Don't step into that until you've moved past the resistance into the sweet spot. So that is what I have for those of you who asked for an example of using an oracle deck alone for shadow work. If you have other questions that you would like me to clarify for you in this series, please let me know in the comments down below. I do read all of your comments, even though I don't always get to respond, and I want to make content and create content that's helpful for you all. So if you let me know what you'd like me to focus on in shadow work, I will be happy to offer clarification in a future video. As always, I am sending you much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video.